Hi and welcome back to Canada Top to Bottom, where today we're talking about why so many immigrants leave our adopted home. About a third of immigrants to Canada don't end up staying in the country for the rest of their lives, and more than half of those who do leave do so within 2 years of gaining permanent residence. Canada seems to have a lot going for it, so why do so many immigrants choose not to stay?
Canada aims to welcome around 350,000 immigrants per year. That might sound like a lot, but these spots are sought after, and Canada could easily double its immigration rate if it was less selective about who is allowed to move here. With a climate of long hot summers and crisp snowy winters, a fast-growing economy and notoriously friendly people, Canada is a pretty appealing place to live. Check out our video on why so many people move to Canada if you want to learn more about why it's such a popular destination for those seeking a new life.
So, why do so many immigrants work hard to get to Canada and then, just a couple of years later, turn around and leave? We're going to try and answer that question today. Firstly, life here is pretty expensive in general. We've lived in the UK, Malta, France and Austria, and on balance, we find life here more expensive than any of them. Eating out is particularly pricey. We'd expect to pay about 20 Canadian dollars per head at least for a meal in a decent restaurant here in British Columbia. And that's before the food tax of 5% and 15% tax to any alcoholic drinks. Tipping is also expected here, and 15% of the total bill is the norm. Now that sounds like a lot of numbers, so here's a simplified version. If the two of us went out for a nice meal and shared a bottle of wine, we wouldn't expect much change from $100.
Grocery shopping is also fairly expensive here. Although if you're willing to forego the convenience of buying everything in one place, you can really save some money by buying food in one place and everyday necessities like toiletries and household supplies somewhere else. There's also an excellent network of second-hand shops or used stores or thrift stores, so there are many more ways to make life more affordable.
Childcare is also pretty expensive at around $40 to $70 per day, but still much cheaper than in the UK, and the Canadian government are pushing to make it even cheaper. Luckily, schools are completely free and the standard's pretty high, so once your kids hit 5 years old, childcare costs pretty much disappear, provided you're free from mid-afternoon to pick up the kids. If not, you'll still have to pay for some childcare, but it's much cheaper per hour for kids of 3 and over than it is for toddlers and babies.
Running a vehicle is also pretty pricey in Canada. Buying a car isn't actually too expensive, and fuel is quite cheap compared to Europe. But insurance is expensive, and you'll need to have 2 sets of tyres, one for summer and one for winter virtually everywhere in Canada, and pay to have them changed over in spring and in autumn.
The second big issue immigrants run into in Canada is tax. The US, just to the south, has a pretty low tax, but in Canada you can get taxed pretty hard, with many people finding that by the time it's all been added up, you can be handing over close to 40% of your earnings to the government via various taxes. That's still less than many people pay in Europe, but it's pretty high, and it can be a shock to those coming from countries with very low tax rates, such as some African nations. Despite all of this, you do get excellent schools, pretty low crime rates, excellent highways, and universal healthcare, so your tax money does at least seem to be getting spent fairly wisely by the government.
Speaking of healthcare, it's the third major problem that immigrants face here. With some exceptions, such as students in Ontario, for example, there is universal healthcare in Canada, and if you have a medical emergency, you will receive excellent care. But not everything health-related is covered. You generally have to pay for prescription drugs, and dental care is also not provided universally by the state. Waiting lists are an issue for non-essential treatments, which is also a problem for some people.
Healthcare is a bit of a minefield in Canada, and each province has its own system, but the basic story is that you'll be covered and receive great treatment if you really need it, but for anything that's not life-threatening, you might have to spend some money, you might have to wait, and you might need to navigate some bureaucracy, particularly in the form of the referral system. It's a pretty good system overall, but don't come here expecting everything to work perfectly, quickly, and completely free of charge.
Climate is the next big issue people run into here. Summers in Canada are pretty blissful, although forest fires are an increasing issue in the west of the country. But winters can be long and very, very cold. There are plenty of places in Canada where temperatures can regularly get below -40 Celsius, and heavy snowstorms can cause major disruption to life. If you can't deal with cold winters, Canada might not be for you. Even in the coastal part of British Columbia around Vancouver, Canada's mildest region, it can get cold. and even if it's not super cold, it's still damp and grey for several months of the year. Basically, if you don't like cold and snowy winters, you might find life a bit tough here.
Expensive housing is the next big problem you're going to find in Canada. House prices shot up around 20% in 2020 and then the same again in 2021, and they were already expensive before that. Vancouver, on Canada's west coast, is rated as the second most expensive housing market in the world, and Toronto, Canada's largest city, is 6th on that list. There's high demand for housing, insufficient supply, and prices show no sign of slowing. Canada is huge, and there are some housing markets in the country which are a little more affordable, but overall this is an expensive country in which to buy a house, and rental isn't cheap either.
Speaking of housing, that leads on to the 6th and for today final topic we're going to discuss: homelessness. There are a lot of homeless people in Canada, and while being one of those homeless people is a lot tougher than being someone walking past them, the sheer number of homeless Canadians is quite remarkable and very saddening. Many Canadian towns have collections of tents and homeless camps dotted around them, and it's not nice to see. What's more, petty crime and theft is higher around these areas, and there are also some quite major drug issues related to the homeless population. If you live in a nice part of a nice town, homelessness isn't going to affect you much, but it's still not what you want to see, and it just goes to show that there are plenty of people who are left behind here.
So, having listed some of the problems with Canada, it seems appropriate to finish with a disclaimer. Overall, life here is great. You get 4 seasons, the people are incredibly friendly, it's generally a very safe place to live and raise a family, and there are lots of opportunities for people who are willing to work hard. It's not perfect, no worries, but we spent a lot of time researching our move here, and it has more than lived up to our expectations.
We think Canada is pretty fantastic, but it's not without its faults, like anywhere. Let us know what you think of the list in the comments below, and tell us if there's anything you think we've missed. Thanks for watching. See you next time.